The Super Bowl champion, six-time Pro Bowler Clay Matthews, and with us today because he might not be here if it wasn't for first responders. Clay, before we get into some football, let's talk about your journey and being a wild and crazy 5-year-old who liked to have a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, I like to have a little bit of fun. Unfortunately, that led to a few accidents and scares, and none more so than the one in which I'm talking about with Verizon's campaign called The Team That Wouldn't Be Here. And really what it is it's an ad in which we're putting out that sheds light on what first responders do for us each and every day. And although each of us might not deal with them in day-to-day operations, they've been there at some point in our life during a time of stress or accidents or some type of trauma in which they've been there. And so, like I said, we teamed up with Verizon, and there's 12 of us NFL players who all have been impacted by first responders, and we all share our stories. And I think it's pretty powerful, during the Super Bowl to, kind of shed light on the lack of credit they deserve and get and recognition. And, mine was one of these 12 stories. And really kind of to touch on that real quick, I was, as you had mentioned, I had the nickname of Psycho growing up, and I was going down a driveway on a scooter. My mom had told me to wear my helmet. I obviously didn't listen to her, as I'm sure young boys do, and I paid a price for that. Unfortunately, I either hit a rock or, had speed wobbles, but I went right over the handlebars onto the asphalt and was knocked out unconscious. My face had horrible scrapes on it. My mom described it as it looked like I had gone through a meat grinder. And, fortunately at the time, one of my neighbors was a pediatric ICU nurse. So they had asked for somebody to call an ambulance, and they rushed and got there within several minutes and, put me in the ambulance with my mother. We were rushed off to the hospital, and, they were monitoring the severity of my injury to see what type of swelling I had in my brain, and if it was, to the point where they would have to remove a piece of skull to kind of alleviate that swelling. Fortunately, that didn't happen, but, I think a large part of, that not being the case, and as fast as I was, wheeled off to the hospital and assessed, and that was a direct result of first responders and paramedics, police, and firefighters. Everybody has their different story, but for me, it was those people who helped me out at a time in need, and obviously not only helped me out physically, but also helped, my mother as far as dealing with expectations and, letting her know, what kind of happens next, what the process is, and, just overall being, professional and courteous in a traumatic situation.
Do you actually remember the day?
I remember the incident a little bit up until I hit the ground. That's when my mom had to fill me in on everything. I think I was around 4 or 5 years old, and there's 5 of us siblings all together, and my dad actually was out in New York for an NFL preseason game, so she was in charge of all 5 of us, probably part of the reason why she looked away and I didn't listen to her. But just the incident up until I hit my head on the ground.
And I'm wondering, you were known as Psycho, and you're this kid that's running around playing a lot. Your whole family's football players, so there's sort of an invincible feel about that, right? That maybe you had already picked up on as a young Clay Matthews, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that I ended up playing football for a living, just running around trying to hit people, tackle people, and take hits. And I also think it's quite ironic that I now wear a helmet for a living. But yeah, I mean, just growing up, I was always, kind of, I would just, I would react first and kind of think later, and probably wasn't the best and gave my parents a few scares. But once I was able to channel that, I definitely, led to some not so forgettable memories.
Yeah. One thing I love about your journey that I think is just kind of inspirational to a lot of guys who are late bloomers. I mean, you didn't grow until you were later in high school. You were a walk-on in college, and you were basically a special teams guy before, being a senior and then getting yourself into the first round in the NFL draft. Like, what would you tell guys who are sitting on the bench, believing in themselves. They have the talent, but, they're starting to doubt whether they're ever going to get a shot.
It really is difficult because there's so many times, as you had mentioned, even in high school, I didn't start until my senior year. I was undersized. My dad was a defensive coordinator, and rightfully so. I wasn't the starter. I got to college, and it wasn't until my fifth year, senior year, that I was the regular starter. And before that, I was just a special teams guy. I had a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for here? I had a lot of drive to, be great. And even if people didn't believe in me, I always believed in myself. But to say I, would have the success I've had today at that point in time, I would be lying if I said I saw this happening and how this would unfold. But the reality was I kind of took it day by day. I tried to improve each day and took what they gave me and ran with it. And I got to the point where I was playing at such a high level and making plays that, the coaching staff had no choice but to start me, because you just don't see a lot of walk-ons at a program like USC at the time have success and be a part of the starting defense with other blue chip and 5-star recruits. So, I guess the biggest piece of, advice I give to them is just, always believe in yourself and continue to work hard and put blinders on. Don't worry about the big picture, at this moment. I know a lot of people will, as far as you got to see the big picture, but as far as, with the grind of, specifically speaking about football and the time you put in the weight room, in the classroom, whatever it may be, you really have to take it one day at a time and just consistently see yourself improving. And that's kind of what happened to me, not only throughout high school, but throughout college. I mean, I came in there and was an unheralded walk-on and left as a first-round draft pick. I put a lot of time in the weight room, on the practice field, a lot of ups and downs, bumps and bruises along the way, but one of the things I never did was quit. And, I think that's what's led to my success so far in my career.
And I also think it's a good lesson for parents out there who want their kid to be out there. I mean, if your dad had just thrown you out there, you're probably, I'm guessing here, but you're probably not where you are today because he made you work for it. And so you developed what it takes to get there and then be successful. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was, he was hard, he was fair, but he definitely was hard on us whenever we started a new endeavor, whether it was, football, basketball, baseball, school. His only rule was once you start something, you need to see it through. And there was probably plenty of times where I didn't want to play football anymore, or basketball, whatever it is. But I think it's a life lesson that when you get older, it's something you pass down to your kids, to not quit, to push through, even when times are rough and you may not like it, but you'll get something out of it in the long run, and it'll help build character. And, I definitely think, growing up in an environment in which I did, in which case my dad had obviously played football and had and excelled at it. He kind of, put those same teachings that his father put on him, who also happened to play in the NFL. And, he didn't drive us to say, hey, you need to play football and this is what you're going to do. But at the same time, once we picked up football, he was going to coach us to, see it through and be the best and have, the best learning and the best opportunities to, to be great.
Go, Dad. Nice job. Good job. Good job, son, too. Let's talk some on the field now. Everyone wants to talk about should instant replay include pass interference? What's Clay Matthews' thought?
I tell you what, after this past weekend, I don't think many people have an argument as to why it should not be. I'm sure people talk about the length of the games and how much it's going to slow down. But, when you're looking at, for instance, this case, the Saints and Rams game, the NFC Championship game, and the implications of this game, I think you look at that call and it falls outside of the norm of what's expected human error from, referees that you see in a game. And obviously it's an imperfect game, but I mean, that was just one that was a complete blown call. And, perhaps it is something that needs to be reviewed. I'm not sure, how that works, how many opportunities coaches have, what plays are reviewable, what aren't. But I definitely think it's something that gets talked about. And there's a discussion with amongst coaches, the competition committee, however that procedure works, to put rules in place to kind of, make the game fair. And, unfortunately, I think everybody realizes, Rams players as well, that, it was a bad call. And, the counter argument to that is you never want to have one call, dictate a game or put yourself in a situation where one call is going to dictate the game. But nonetheless, it was a pretty bad non-call.
And you had some brutal roughing the passer calls this year, and just, we're in Chicago. I've grown up a Bears fan, but there's just no integrity when stuff like that happens, and it's just blatant that you're playing the game, not trying to injure the quarterback. I don't know what you think could happen going forward, because they're never going to back off from protecting the quarterback, but I'm thinking at least they could dial back the fines when they review them, because they're taking a big chunk of change. I know you guys make a lot of money, but you've earned that money. That part seems especially wrong to me.
Sure, yeah. I actually I didn't get flagged later in the year, but I got fined for another hit on a quarterback later in the year. And fortunately, that was a big fine. I actually had it rescinded because, I think there's a discrepancy between what happens on the field and what people who are sitting, in New York or, wherever it may be, see as far as a product of the game. And I understand, you want to protect your business by keeping great quarterbacks healthy from egregious hits. You saw Aaron go down with, his injury 2 years ago, and obviously the level of play falls off, and that goes with all starting quarterbacks. So I understand that you're protecting your business, but at the same time, I felt like last year, especially early in the year, the pendulum had swung in the complete other direction, and you couldn't even, touch the quarterback without a flag, coming out from every referee. And I was, obviously the poster child for a few weeks in a row, getting a few hits, and I, would try it this way and try it that way. And, unfortunately it seemed like the fans, had reached a breaking point, and it seemed like even Bears fans were on my side as far as, what constitutes a legal and good hit. And, it looked as if it had been changed to allow the hits that you had seen in years prior. And obviously anything that was over the top would get flagged. But, you even look at this past AFC Championship game in which, one of the D linemen for Kansas City came close to hitting Tom Brady's face mask, and the flag was thrown almost preemptively just because, quarterbacks are getting so much attention. So, it is unfortunate, especially when that's how, as pass rushers, we make our livelihood, that they're going in that direction. I realize they generate business. People want to see touchdowns and elite quarterbacks, but we've got a job to do too. So it's unfortunate, but it doesn't sound like, as you had mentioned, much is going to change. You just hope that they allow the hard, tough legal hits and, let the cards fall where they may. But in the meantime, we just try our best to, stay off from going low and high and, falling on them, which is a lot easier said than done.
Two more real quick ones. Are the Bears the favorite in the North in 2019?
Well, I think the Vikings were the favorite this past year after going to the NFC Championship game, and then, with all the success Chicago had this past year, you would imagine that heading into the season they'll probably be the favorite in the North. But that's the great thing about every year is, that the top dog in whatever conference it is not always guaranteed that. So hopefully, I know you're a Bears fan, but hopefully, we the Packers can get back on top.
Yeah, give us a prediction for the Super Bowl real quick.
It's hard to bet against the Patriots. I've been saying that. I really like the firepower of young energy from the Rams. Obviously, being from LA, it's fun to see their success in such a short amount of time. But 9 Super Bowls, I believe, it is for Tom Brady, and you just look at the machine that is the New England Patriots, and it's just hard to bet against them. Even in their losses in the Super Bowl, it's come down to the last play. So I'm going to take the safe bet here and go with the Patriots. But, my PC answer is that I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah. And last one, does Aaron not get enough credit in regards to Brady? Because everyone says he's the GOAT, but, you look at the strict numbers, Aaron has him beat. Not obviously with Super Bowls, but if you look at everything else, Rodgers' career is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm privy to a lot of stuff that people don't see. The stuff, the throws he makes in practice, the way I think he was looking off defenders with no look passes before Mahomes was. So I'm sure he's probably sitting at home saying that to himself. He does some pretty innovative stuff, and the way he's able to move around in the pocket and create plays is truly remarkable. But, as you're well aware, every football fan, whether it's right or wrong, championships kind of define, who the greatest is as they talk about, whether it's in, football, basketball, baseball, and, Aaron's got one and Tom's got a few more. So, but but Aaron, he'll be back there soon enough. Hopefully I'm along for the ride with him. But a quarterback of his caliber and magnitude, it's only a matter of time before you get back to another Super Bowl.
Clay, appreciate the time, and great to hear your story, and given the respect to the first responders, it's awesome, and we appreciate talking to you today.
Hey, absolutely, my pleasure.